welcome in to Career Competitor. I'm Steve Mellor, and we are the show that seeks to light that competitive fire within you in order to jumpstart or optimize your career. Now, I'm hitting you with my competitive call today, so let's get to it. No time to waste. The theme of my competitive call today is that of present the problem. Present the problem. Now, what do you mean by that, Steve? So, let me give you an example here. So, with my clients that I work with, a lot of the time they come to me at some point during every session and they present a problem that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Now, as a coach, my objective is to identify that problem and work specifically on that. Now, the human instinct, the nature that so many of us are guilty of, and trust me, when I'm not a coach and I'm just at home and I'm talking with my wife or with friends, I can certainly be guilty of this too. Human nature, what will happen is that we present the problem to begin with, and then we start to talk, and we start to talk more. And before we know it, we're in a conversation and we're presenting all these ideas and opinions that have stemmed from this initial problem. We might even be starting to simulate potential ramifications that can come from the problem. And just a few minutes later, after what was clearly just a specific problem has now become a negative conversation, we've now moved into this rabbit hole of really just being downright negative. And the conversation now has become the problem. We actually lost sight of what the problem was a couple of minutes ago because we started to address things that were hypotheticals. We started to address things that were out of our control. And again, going back to my initial example, in my role as a coach, I make a point of acknowledging what the problem is as soon as possible before we get into this headspace of a world, of a universe that frankly doesn't exist, that we've allowed to be created because we've started to just ramble and go on and we've lost sight of what the problem is. Now, I'm presenting this to you in this particular competitive call because I don't want this to be you. I want you to figure out how to present the problem, acknowledge the problem, and rectify the problem. Because we all have the ability to do that. It's actually so much easier to just complain and to moan and to allow what an initial problem was once to turn into just this narrative of negativity. And I always give a definition and a metaphor of a train leaving the station. When the train leaves the station, it leaves with the problem. But by the time it's stopped at 4, 5, 10 more stations, it's picked up a few more people that are now getting the latest update on what the rest of the train is talking about. So like I said, when you get many stations down, how can that initial problem still be present? There's no way. Too many opinions, too many thoughts have now been thrown in. So if you're sat at a desk today, if you're around people today, and a problem comes up and you start to talk, and people start to share opinions and give different perspectives on things, before you know it, the problem will be lost. No longer can you actually present the problem, acknowledge the problem, and rectify it. That opportunity is now gone. Now the conversation itself has become the problem, which now means we have to acknowledge the conversation as the problem, and we have to rectify that before we can do anything else. So when I'm working with a client and I explain to them, listen, let's not lose sight of the problem. Because how can we have growth if we're creating issues, creating more problems that are turning our attention away from the true problem at hand? Again, this is how we get to these states of overwhelm. This is why anxiety comes into our life. Because at some point, we've allowed one real problem to turn into 4 or 5 almost hypothetical problems. But our body can't tell the difference. It feels this energy of a problem being creative, of overwhelm really kicking in. So, reflect. Look at your day. If you're listening to this at the end of the day, reflect, look back on your day. If you listen to this at lunch, reflect, look back on your morning. Think, were there any problems that you had to deal with this morning? Did you become aware of any specific problems? Because if you start looking through the lens like this, you'll be amazed how quickly your list of problems goes down. Because what feels like many problems can actually be identified as just a couple. And now that you've identified them, you can rectify them. And then when the true growth comes in, you start to notice when a conversation is taking place that is filled with all these sort of hypothetical and almost imaginary problems that have been created through a dialogue that you weren't maybe even there when it first started. And that's a level of presence of mind, of conscious thought that can really allow for just the greatest amount of growth, make you an even greater competitor, and allow you to start working towards your optimal self, which is what we're all about on this show. So give that some thought. How good are you at presenting problems to yourself? And then to go one step further, if you are a leader, if you are a manager, how good are you at walking into a situation, acknowledging the problem, and helping others rectify it? That's a trait in a leader that I want to be around. Give it some thought. Before you know it, you'll know how to present the problem immediately. It'll make it 100 times easier to rectify it because you'll no longer be distracted by these ideas of problems. And you'll become a heck of a lot more useful on a day-to-day basis. Much more productive. Results will go through the roof. And then you'll have me to thank, right? But in all seriousness, I really hope this is something that was beneficial to you to at least give some thought to and just analyze yourself, have maybe some difficult internal dialogue with yourself about how you can incorporate this. And so much of what I'm presenting on this show is to do that, is to create difficult dialogue, because that's where growth comes from, people. So you got to get a little bit more comfortable with that idea of having some difficult dialogue internally, giving yourself that opportunity to grow. And hey, based on the theme of this particular episode, see how many problems you can start to present clearly when they come your way, rectify them immediately. You can do that. I believe in you. I know this can be helpful if you're willing to incorporate it. And in the meantime, listen, we've got some incredible guests coming your way. The episodes are only going to continue to improve throughout this year. And one last thing as well, if you enjoyed what it was I had to share here on this particular episode, then you need to reach out to me, steve@careercompetitor.com. That's steve@careercompetitor.com. Let's have a chat. I can offer you a free 30-minute consultation. Maybe my style of coaching is something you need in your life today. And maybe my style of coaching is something that someone you know needs in their life today. Either way, reach out. Let me know. Would love to hear from you. But in the meantime, guys, listen, keep up the great work. Best of luck in anything and everything you've got going on. I look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Bye for now.